Environmental irritants. What environments are in the way of your vision? What is an environment? An environment is anything that we rely upon to get things done. Our environment. It's anything that we rely upon. It's like a crab. A crab has an exoskeleton it relies upon for strength. It means granting power to your environment. But a lot of us have environments that are counteractive to where we want to go. They push up against us. One of those environments could be the area of people. Do you have relationships around you, in your support team, in your relationships personally? Do you have people around you that enable you to reach your vision? Or are they a bunch of given-ups that are second-guessing your abilities? What do you have around you? Do you have energy around you that supports you? Your clothing. Do you feel good about your clothing? Is that an environment that you are feeling great about? Is that an environment that supports what you want? Your home environment, your office environment, the spaces in which you work. Are these spaces stimulating what you do? Are these spaces stimulating your ability to create your vision? The tools and appliances that you use. Are these tools and appliances, are they constantly breaking down? Are they fit and equipped and robust enough to maintain your course? And any other types of environments. How about your food? What you put in your body? Does the food that's going inside, coming from the outside, stimulate you? Does it allow you to be fit to do what you want to do? Think of other environments that stimulate you and go to work on them as a strategy. Think of what environments impede your progress. Maybe pick a few environments as a strategic direction to go to work on. One of the main environments is your health. Of course, food would be an aspect of your health, but food contributes to your energy. Fitness contributes to your energy, which contributes to your appearance, your attitude, your resistance to illness, your stress, and your sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep at night, how is that contributing to the other areas of your life? And if you're not getting enough sleep, how is that contributing to your desire to eat more? People who sleep less eat worse. The reason they eat worse is they tend to go to sugar items to raise their energies on those days, and they go after caffeine and other items that have long producing effects. Do you have any addictions that you need to get rid of? Looking over the area of your health, ask yourself, what is your present situation? Am I fit to do what I want to do with the other areas in my life? And what needs to change? What actions need to be taken in order for me to forward myself to the vision I have of my health, my vision of my business, and the vision of my relationship? Short supply. What are you constantly running out of? It's been said that if you constantly run out of things, you're in a survival mode, and that certainly isn't going to make you effective. So what are you constantly running out of? Are you running out of supplies? Are you constantly running out of time? Are you running out of potential talent for your business? Are you constantly running out of money? One of the strategies in our performance program is to build up a super reserve of some of these areas that are most important. You might think about, when defining your present situation, what are you constantly running out of? What's your present situation? Do you have adequate supply? Do you have backups technologically? Do you have plan Bs set up, contingency plans, technological plans? Do you have data saving plans? Do you save your data so that you'll never crash? This enables you to maintain focus. Your orientation to others. Is your orientation to others about them, or is it about you? I've found that individuals that create their vision have a genuine altruism to others. It is not synthetic. They have a true empathy because their entire focus is outward, either on their creations or understanding the world around them in a different way. I call this a first-person versus third-person orientation. In a first-person orientation, the lens that you look through at the world is everything is about first-person singular. It's you, yourself, me, myself. So the world is gravitating around you. Everything is about you. It's about who you are. It's about how things are affecting you, about how things are not working for you, about how it's not good enough for you. In the third-person orientation, you're bringing your energies to something outside of you. You have a sense of contribution and commitment to differences, and understanding empathetically what's really going on. Because you're not so close to yourself, you're able to measure a different level of involvement with what you're doing. You're able to see things objectively, not offensively. You're able to truly understand something from a distance and make necessary changes to interact with it differently and redirect it to a better place. Are you creating value or are you getting business? Are you creating in a way that helps other people move toward their vision and goals inside and outside your organization? Or is it really all about what you want and what you can get? Where's your focus? Your orientation can be deeply connected to your ability to create what you want. I've seen this inadvertently really hurt individuals when their whole focus is really all about themselves, figuring out who they are, and trying to fix things that are wrong with them. However, great creators are entirely focused on what they can affect, and they bring a voluntary energy to what they imagine or what they want to create with their passion. They discover the relationships they want to create, the health, the vision of the future that they want to create, and they're able to maintain a consistent focus on it. Skills. What skills do you do well? What skills need help? Your people skills. Your ability to relate to people. Your interpersonal skills. Your ability to generate rapport with people. Your situational knowledge. In business, one of the capabilities of great salespeople is to understand the situations that buyers face so that they can find, qualify, and close the right buyers with capabilities that match those situations. Do you understand the capabilities of your products and services? Can you skillfully prescribe capabilities to the situations that your buyers are facing? Technical knowledge. Do you have the way to skillfully explain the technicalities of what you do, the technicalities of your product or service? Qualifying skills. Is this an area that's consistently misleading you into poor opportunities where you waste time and practice selling instead of collecting checks? Do you qualify the decision maker in meetings? Do you qualify the time? Do you make sure that there's a need? Do you diagnose before you prescribe? Do you have consultations before you make presentations? What about your closing skills? Do you close people in a way that they feel proud of buying from you? Or do you push them and coerce them into a sale? Follow-up. How are your skills to stay on your game and follow up with individuals who either aren't ready or who are just about to buy? Articulating your competition, your present situation, your comparison study. As I said before, how do you match up? Looking at your comparisons, what's really going on and what might you need to address in order to get a competitive edge? Systemization and structure. What processes do you have in place? Are they yielding the kind of yields and the kind of performance that you want? If you're in sales, what about your sales scripts? Do you have processes in place to eliminate mistakes and to clarify the verbiage? Checklists. Do you have checklist systems in place in customer service, management, finance, sales, to make sure that everything is done? Like a person who is preparing a hotel room before a guest, they have a checklist of everything that needs to be done that's in place. It's illustrative and it's clear. And in order to make sure that it was followed through with, every one of those checkpoints needs to be met. Automation. What automation is going on in your business? Are you paperless? Where are you now? Looking at your competition, what might need to be adjusted or changed in your plans to reach your vision? Is the current level of automation keeping you from your vision? Are things so inefficient that the delays are very considerable, slowing things down and delaying decision-making capability? Do you have the information right when you need it to evaluate the current health of your company through the right systems? Do you have a good financial information system, record-keeping system, and automation system for sales and record data keeping? Structural dynamics and systems thinking influences. This is about seeing beyond the obvious, seeing obstacles through your present situation. A lot of this involves looking at what we call archetypes. They're typical structures that define cause and effect relationships. I'd like to start with a few of them. One of them is a very common fix that we have in our organization: problem solving. This has become the fundamental practice of most business planning today. But it's a problem with problem solving that we don't see. Let me explain. Most of our business meetings, the temperament of them is to identify the problems that are going on. Just like the squeaky wheel, whatever's squeaking the loudest is where we're going to put our repairing and attention. What we do is we take action to remove the problem. So we put those action plans in place to eliminate the problem that's occurring. The problem suddenly is eliminated, and there's a temporary triumph. But inadvertently, invisibly, we reduce the necessary actions that it took to eliminate the problem since the beginning. Since the actions are removed because of the eradication of the problem, what ends up happening most likely is there's a reverse effect. Continuity occurs. Things begin to stay the same. This happens with weight loss. It happens with business planning. If I plan to lose weight, I lose the pounds in order to eliminate the disapproval I had from a person around me. They all of a sudden approve me for being thin. I discontinue eating and exercising the way that I was, and I bounce back to being fat. And I'm right back at wanting to desire to be thin again. It's this vicious cycle that we often get caught up with and we don't see. This involves asking different questions. What do you choose to create? Go back to the original center point of the creative process. What do I want to create? What is my canvas? What exactly do I want to bring into being? Once you reunite with that information again, and when you go into meetings and planning situations by identifying what you want for its own sake, you eliminate the tragic lure of problem solving and the fix that backfires from it. Another problem is that we have a low tolerance for emotional tension. When you begin to gauge the difference between where you are and where you want to go, you can end up being very frustrated. And as time goes on, as you're closing the gap between those 2 points, it involves having a great degree of tolerance for emotional tension. What I mean is that as you go along, there will be lessons, mistakes, wins, successes, frustrations, but everything you're doing is a learning platform to make adjustments to enable your capabilities to create what you want. But lowering the tolerance for emotional tension can manifest itself in a very bad way. Because we can't tolerate the emotional tension between the gap, what we do is we try to erode the goal by compromising it and bringing it closer. By doing this, we find our area of tolerable tension. And this happens often by hearing people giving up. They try to reduce the pressure instead of maintain course. This happens over a long period of time where we find ourselves convincing ourselves of better ways, easier ways of doing things, when the reality is all we're doing is we're trying to alleviate pressure instead of creating what's most important to us. Another problem that happens where we mistake this for the creative process is we substitute what we're creating with something that we don't like in ourselves and we're trying to live up to it. And if you ask yourself why exactly you want things, you might find yourself at the basic motivational premise of why you want it, that you're trying to fix something that you don't like about yourself. For example, you're not charismatic, and you feel that if you were more charismatic, you'd be able to have what you want. That assumes that you're not charismatic enough, and if you were charismatic, you'd be able to have what you want. But is that really creating what you want? By creating the outcome that you want, the outgrowth of that should be that charisma would develop as a byproduct. But if you focus only on the charisma, you're so focused on what you're doing for yourself as opposed to creating an external outcome that you're so close to it, what happens is it actually begets the underlying belief that you aren't charismatic. It reinforces it. Because once you try to reprogram yourself that you are, you're just confirming the truth that you aren't. And that truth is not true. Whether you're charismatic or not is not the issue. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that would opinionate them around you not being charismatic, or you just might be charismatic. Instead, ask yourself what you want to create, because you may be changing the wrong thing. It may not be because you're not charismatic. It may be because you're not creating the kind of value that you could for the people around you. It may be because you're not listening to people, and it may be because you're not helping them create what they want. As a result, they might pin you as non-charismatic. Now, you also may feel an external should that you need to live up to, as if the world has pinned something on you that you need to constantly struggle and live up to. Talk yourself out of that talk, because there's a real folliness behind it. Your entire focus is something is wrong with you and you're trying to fix it. Instead, focus on what you want to create. Ask yourself why you feel that you're not charismatic. Understand the death-defying nature of trying to resolve an ideal belief conflict between yourself and what you're trying to do. Focus on the creation itself instead of fixing something that you feel is wrong with you. That is a very dangerous lure. Another problem I see is when you link identity with the results or stuff or areas around you. Throughout our life, we've been told what's most important. So some of us may feel that we are our car. We may feel we are our experience, which really we aren't, because experience is stuff that we experience. We are not our experiences. Experiences are things that we live with. You may think that you are your house. You may think that you are your thinking. You may think that you are your emotions. Once you begin to separate yourself during this creative process, you begin to observe something from a distance, and you can make the proper changes if needed. You also begin to understand yourself as you are, and realize that there is a fatality with trying to change everything for its own sake. Only change the items or traits or habits that are in the way of what you want to create. Separate yourself from what you're creating. If you're standing too close to it, you can't use failure as an asset to learn and make the necessary adjustments to get there. Beliefs. Oftentimes we have underlying beliefs that we feel undermine our ability to create what we want. The two most common underlying beliefs are, I don't have the power to create what I want, and two, I'm not worthy of creating what I want. And about 95% of people out there tend to have these concepts. And what ends up happening is, as they take action to create what they want, they undermine it by withdrawing from it, by confirming this belief, by resolving it in terms of, I can't have what I want, so I lower my vision, or I discontinue, or I give up. I convince myself that I'm not going to create it. One of the problems is trying to change the belief. I don't believe that changing beliefs is the most successful way to creating what you want. I do see that it is very healthy to recognize the danger and the resolution of an undermining belief. One of the things that I say to people is that you can keep in mind what the belief is, but separate from it, identify what you want to create. Just because you feel that you don't have the power to create what you want doesn't mean you have the inability to make a fundamental choice to become the creative force in your life. It's simply a fundamental choice. It's a way of operating in life. It's getting out of reacting and responding to circumstances and choosing to create what you want for its own sake. So when you contemplate what you want, you've already kind of done that. You've fundamentally decided that you're going to be the responsible party for creating what you want in your life. But realize in the past, when you look at why things may not have happened, you may have resolved the dead belief instead of held steady to what mattered to you through your fundamental choice making. Worthlessness. Many of us feel that we need to be worthy of creating what we want and setting up a deserving way of having what we want, as if we can earn our stripes and we have to justify our existence. And this is just not true. You do not need to deserve what you want. In fact, you do not need to be in a deserving position at all. All human beings have the ability to tap their imagination and passions regardless of their circumstances and their situations. Learning how to create involves learning how to create regardless of those two pieces, your circumstances and your situation. It really doesn't matter. All that matters is you recognize where you actually are, and then you have a starting point to help yourself learn. Overfixation on the wrong things. If you're too fixated on cash flow, this can create a problem. When entrepreneurs get in trouble with relationship to money, what they do is they focus on one thing and don't balance out the other. That one is either cash flow or future marketing. If you're so focused on future development of opportunities, then you don't take care of the short-term cash flow needs that you have and make sure money's coming in. In contrast, if you're so focused on current cash flow and current opportunities, then you don't spend your time on all the future marketing developments to ultimately recycle the cash flow. This can become a recurring problem and a serious limit to growth because of overfixation on short-term decisions and long-term ones. Be mindful that you balance these two aspects by balancing out your time to work on your future pipeline as well as your present pipeline and current client promises. By organizing your time well, you can better define how you're doing in current reality. Are you organizing your time to balance these two things out? Is your lack of view of these two different balancing acts, is this causing you to experience cash flow swings because of where you're spending your time? The self-esteem trap. There have been many studies out there that link self-esteem to capability and success. I have found through research that there is no linkage between self-esteem and your ability to create what you want. Just because you feel bad about yourself does not mean that you do not enable a creative process in your life. I want you to liken it to creating a lovely bouquet. As I start, I begin to imagine what it is that I want to create, and I come to terms with that picture in my mind. I look at the palette of items that I have around me. I have the vase, the flowers, I have some extras, ribbon, I have a card, and I begin to see a contrast between what's in front of me and what I have in mind. I begin to take action between those 2 points. As I'm doing that, I'm constantly observing current reality, my creation, and the creation I have in mind. As I begin to close the gap, I put the finishing touches on the bouquet and I compare it to what I had in mind. And then I live with my creation and I accept it. That process is no different than making your life the subject matter of the creative process. As I was underway in the process of creating this, self had nothing to do with the process. How I felt about myself had nothing to do with the process. Whether I was having a good day, whether it was satisfying to me, whether I felt good, bad, in a good mood, in PMS, bad mood, whatever it was, whatever was going on with me, whether my friend had kicked me out, whether I was in bankruptcy, no matter what my situation was, I still had the capability to imagine what I wanted, to recognize where I was, and to close the gap through successive action. Symbolically, this process is no different than making your life or the creations you want to create the subject matter. So what is self-esteem? Well, it's nice to have, but I think it's a failing linkage to realize that if you had a prerequisite high level of self-esteem, you'd be able to do what you wanted to do. Misunderstanding secondary choices. In the creative process, we make primary choices about what we want to create, and oftentimes secondary choices that support the actions necessary to create what we want to create. Oftentimes I see what people do, they mistake secondary choices for primary ones. Primary ones are the ones we love and we care enough about them to want to bring them into being. These are fundamental choices to how we want to organize our lives. But secondary choices are choices that aren't necessarily things that we want to do, but because they are successful in our best judgment on behalf of the creations that we want to create and on behalf of the actions to create the creations, what we do is we do them. But what often we do is we say, I don't really like doing that, so I want to focus on the things I like doing. And this is a poor hierarchy of importance in the mind. Secondary choices support primary ones. Not all choices that you make are going to be choices that make you feel good or that you like. But because you've established a hierarchy of what's more important, structurally, you've enabled yourself to enact yourself on the secondary choices. For example, if I want to create a body that has 200 pounds and go from 250 to 200, and I'm currently at 250, my eating habits are eating a bunch of sugar and chocolate, and I'm very impulsive. And so I begin to strengthen the gap. I arm the arrow like an archer between current reality. I cock the arrow back. With the other arm, I'm cocking it forward. I establish that tension relationship. And then, boom, I propel that arrow by taking action. Secondary choices could be the eating habits. I take walks diligently. Do I like walking? No. Does it support what I want to create? Yes. Do the foods I'm eating, do I like all of them? No. Do they support the creation I want to create with my body? Yes, they do. Don't mistake secondary choices for primary ones. These are some of the structural influences that happen, and what this enables you to do is to look at the whole picture, look at cause and effect relationships. I've discussed many of them with you here, and hopefully what I've done is I've peeled your eyes back on what could be really going on and what has led you to past failures to create what you wanted. Psychological factors. Other psychological factors are thinking realistic. For example, basing your origination process on what you know. Maybe all you do is think about what's possible, but you're not thinking big enough. Your willingness to experiment or take risks. Why aren't you willing to take risks or experiment? It's not a matter of trusting yourself. A lot of it can be a misunderstanding of the process and the fact that you're not using your learner mindset to be a student of the past actions that you made. By using this learning cycle of planning, doing, studying, and acting on newly modified information, by recycling it again, it'll allow you to increase capability and to keep this process far enough away from yourself and your willingness so that you don't mix yourself with the effectiveness of the process. So are you willing to experiment and take risks? Part of being a good creator is learning from what you're doing, learning through experimentation, not convention, but invention. Reaction to internal pressure, mental toughness. Do you understand the dynamics and forces at play with emotional tension? If you have internal pressure to live up to your own ideals, or you have external pressure to change because of urgencies that have come up or influential people, where's your mental toughness? Call reluctance level. If you're in sales, is your level of call reluctance considerable and keeping you from what you want? Recovery capability from errors. Do you give yourself second chances? Is everything in a state of practice, or do you expect success on the first try? Emotional blocks. I often say people give life to their blockages. They shine their light on things that they can use to keep them from what they want because of other confirmations of beliefs and reasons. So what we do is we use these sorts of emotions and blocks as big reasons to make sure that we stay safe. What are those emotional blocks? And are you using them? Are you giving them life? Are they really that trepidatious to you? Are they that irritating to create what you want? Maybe your ego prevents you from learning. Maybe you're so afraid that people will find out that you're vulnerable that you'll be laughed at, or you'll be embarrassed. Or maybe you feel that up to this point, everything you've done has been self-reliance, but now you need to rely on teamwork in order to reduce the complexity and get to the next level. Describe your ego in present situation terms. Keeping your priorities. Maybe you're not clear on your priorities, or maybe you compromise them or can't hold steady to them. You haven't clarified what your priorities are. Your focusing ability. Your current ability to concentrate internally and externally is being distracted by your environment, or you got train wreck of the mind, just too many ideas. There are ways to address that. Or maybe you're not confident enough to be honest. Maybe you consistently lie in order to resolve being mocked at or keep your job security. Maybe your lack of honesty keeps you from taking corrective action or helping other people come to your aid. Negative thinking and self-doubt. Maybe you overblame yourself or linger with thoughts so long to your detriment that you can't get back on track. And this gets in the way of you seizing opportunities. Or it's your fears, your danger, your fear of danger, rejection, your fear of success, confrontation, intimate conversation, your fear of losing, your fear of embarrassment. A lot of these fears have resolution systems that keep you from what you want to create. Does this involve overcoming them with willpower or trying to program yourself that you're not fearful? Not at all. This process is about recognizing the true fears that you have. The reason that you're fearing things is because you respect yourself enough to not hurt yourself. So be thankful that you're caring enough about you to not put yourself in danger. But fear does not need to be your undoing. Again, having a hierarchy of importance where you identify what you want to create, you're able to separate yourself and what you're going through from the creative process through successive action. Understand the dynamics in play, the forces in play in the process. That's the creator's stock and trade. Lastly, how about your team? What's your present situation with your team? Is there a level of trust to allow openness and honesty about what's really going on? Is there a favoring of differences and ideas, or is everybody synthetically the same and in agreement? Progress begins when differences are explored. Are the roles on your team clear enough to where people know what to do and how to do it? Is there a clear understanding of roles from each other so that everybody understands and expects who does what and when to ask for help on certain things? Does the team have direction? Is there individual and shared direction for the team? Communication. Is there good communication in the team so that assumptions are eliminated without blame and without misunderstanding of the truth? And is there a willingness to change on the team? Is the team that you're going to need? Are these the real players that are the team for you? Do they match your strengths well, and is there complementary aspects to the team? Are they true believers of the vision? Are they bought in, or are they grudgingly compliant with undermining resentment? Now, these are just a number of primer areas. I've given you a lot to think about here, and I don't want it to be that I've overwhelmed you with so much that could be wrong that you feel like you're really in an impossible situation. Not everything I've mentioned is an imposed obstacle on you. There are varying degrees that people amplify in these particular primer areas. So as you go through them, you may want to play this back again and evaluate in your thinking where you are in your present situation. This is scary because the next step is about what you need to change or what actions you need to take. And in order to enable yourself to take action, you may need to look at some of these necessary things that are relevant to your vision. I appreciated the opportunity to work through this process with you. And I ask you again to commit to yourself the greatest honesty and truth, and to pinpoint to yourself what the root causes are of surface issues, not just deal with symptoms. I appreciate you looking further into your own truth and establishing a very, very clear path to where you want to go.